Good evening all. My name is Lynn Drummond and I'm born and bred in Llanelli. I'm the eldest of 4 children, 3 girls and a boy. Our brother John was mentally handicapped, whom we sadly lost in 1914. My husband Jim is a Scot who came to Wales to find me. When I was working as a student nurse in Morriston Hospital, and he was a metallurgist in the Steel Company of Wales at Felindre Works. We met in 1966, married in 1969, and subsequently had 3 sons who have given us 5 lovely grandchildren, 4 granddaughters and a grandson. Jim and I celebrated our golden wedding anniversary last May. Before I go any further, please excuse a look. This is the result of 42 days in isolation with this coronavirus. I've never had long hair in my life, and I've had to resort to wearing a hairband. When you see this on the 13th of May, we will be on our 63rd day of isolation. Can you imagine what I'm going to look like then? Never mind, outward appearances don't matter to God. It's what's in your heart that counts. Tonight I'm going to share with you my Christian journey. My first recollection was going to church is when I went to the Band of Hope in Davian Church, where magic lantern shows were such a novelty. Now I'm showing my age. My mother's side of the family were big Welsh goers, chapel goers. They went to Ebenezer Annibynwyr Independent Chapel. Do you remember going to Sunday school with those silly hats, elastic round your chin? Oh, the thought of them now. Anyway, the highlight of me when I was in that church chapel was when I was 16. I was made a member, and I could go to the St. Vow to have my first Holy Communion. After the children, in the 1970s, my mother's friend from Scotland asked me would I go with her to Presby, because Presby is the Presbyterian Church of Scotland. So yes, I decided to go with her, and I was there for 40 years. Looking back, if anyone asked me then, I'd say I was a Christian, because I went to church. How wrong and ignorant was I to think that. I'm a big believer that everything we go through in life is for a purpose. I said that I want to be a nurse at the age of 4 years, a career which I absolutely loved. I worked through the ranks and eventually became a senior nurse manager in charge of 4 departments. The stress was unbelievable. But in 1998, I experienced what only can be described as the ultimate betrayal by some of my peer group. I was devastated that people could be so vindictive and so jealous of my achievements. I won't go into detail this evening, but the hurt I felt really slips into insignificance as to what Jesus must have felt when he was betrayed. He suffered the ultimate cost by dying on the cross for us to take away our sins. Because of this episode, my health deteriorated and I suffered a nervous breakdown. My marvellous family supported me throughout this ordeal, and gradually I went back to church and joined the church choir. The minister at the time, the Reverend Geoffrey Barrington, and his wife Marilyn, spent many hours counselling me and urging me to join the Bible class. At first I thought, what do I want to join a Bible class for? It's not for me. Eventually, in 1999, I succumbed and went to my first Bible class in the manse, which is in the next street to where I live. I'll never forget that Monday. Monday morning, as what happened, I can only describe as the beginning of my journey of faith. They were studying the book of Romans, chapter 12. When it came to verse 19, I felt a peculiar feeling throughout my body. Verse 19 says, "Do not take revenge, my friends, but leave room for God's wrath. For it is written, 'It is mine to avenge. I will repay,' said the Lord." This verse I repeated to myself on many occasions. I felt that God was speaking to me through this passage. From then on, I attended church regularly. I went to weekly Bible studies. In 2003, I attended my first Alpha course, and on the Holy Spirit Day, on Saturday the 8th of March at 3:20, I received the Holy Spirit and welcomed Jesus into my life. From that moment on, my life changed for the better, and I became more content and at peace with the world. That night, I threw my Prozac tablets in the bin, and I haven't taken them since. My only regret that I hadn't found the Lord sooner in my life. Starting with the book of John, I read the whole Bible, but I must admit I had to skip some of the book of Kings and Numbers, as it was, names all the time. I highlight a number of passages in my Bible, which I still refer to. This is one of them. 1 Corinthians 10, verse 13. "No temptation has seized you except what is common to man, and God is faithful. He will not let you be tempted beyond what you can bear, but when you are tempted, he will also provide a way out so that you can stand up under it." In life, we go through ordeals that only Lord knows. I believe that I went through my ordeal to reach my purpose-driven life under the protection and love of Jesus. In my life, I've had 15 operations, more than my whole family put together, which has left me with my vital organs only. The most severe was in 2014, when I was diagnosed with breast cancer. I was not afraid because I knew that the Lord was with me. I was more concerned for my family, who took the news badly. But my response gave them some encouragement. Oh, was I glad to have my faith then. When I walked into that Neath hospital theatre for a mastectomy, I said to the Lord, "Jesus, I need you with me now." He really was. He really was with me, and because of this, I had a positive attitude. Unfortunately, through a surgical error, I developed sepsis 2 weeks later and was readmitted, but this time to Prince Philip Hospital. I won't go into the gory details of what happened, but I do remember the surgeons discussing whether I should be transferred to the intensive care unit as my condition was deteriorating. I remember praying and telling the Lord to make me better. He did, and 1 week later I was back home with my family. I was back in Presby within 2 months. I'd been an elder in the church since 2006, and in 2010 I was ordered to be chosen as the new church secretary. Myself and the 3 other elders, namely Carl Slade, Kath Davis and Don Thomas, persevered with little support from the presbytery. And following an incident, we all decided to find a church there where we could be faithfully led and fed. Not food, but by spiritual feeding. The only way I could leave Presby after 40 years was by saying to myself repeatedly, when I entered the church, This is a building, I am the church. This is a building, I am the church. We were leaving on the last Sunday of April 2015, and we were going to visit several local churches before deciding where to plant our roots. As you can imagine, it was a difficult time for all of us. On that previous Friday, little Kath and I met an old minister and his mother for coffee in Dunelm. And whilst we were sending them off, a lady approached us and asked us if we were Christians, as she had overheard us talk about the book of Corinthians. We chatted for a while, and as a result, she invited us to go to the coffee morning at Tŷ Gwyn the following Monday. That lady, who we owe a great deal of gratitude to, is Sandra Harvey. Kath and I sat in the car afterwards, our encounter with her, and was stunned. We both agreed that this must be a sign from God. On the following Monday, Kath and I did go to the Tŷ Gwyn coffee morning, where we were warmly welcomed. I'll never forget the big hug I had from Bonnie Partridge, and we remain close friends to this day. Pastor Ivan chatted to us, and I told him that if we decided to go to Tŷ Gwyn, we would be loyal. Afterwards, I said to Kath, I think we found our new church. And 5 years later, we're still here. I was thrilled to see my sister Nan Cwmni follow me to Tŷ Gwyn. She too had been an elder in Presby, but had left earlier than the rest of us because of the stress. I became a member in Tŷ Gwyn in 2016 and was proud to be part of the group who were baptised in the last baptismal service that took place in the old Tŷ Gwyn church in New Road. Due to my continued health issues, I'm unable to do physical work, but God is using me in different ways. I've always been a people person, and the Lord uses me as a motivator and encourager in a number of groups in the community. When Pastor Paul Freelove became unwell, I was encouraged to lead the group by Paul and Pastor John Iverson, which usually takes every fortnight on a Monday afternoon. It gives me an opportunity to do my own Bible study on the messages received in church on the previous 2 weeks. However, I only see myself as a facilitator in preparing the study, but I can't thank Pastor Paul and Pastor Brian Lewis enough for their continued encouragement and support, and their input into the life group study with their wealth of knowledge and experience. We always end our life group by singing an old hymn, whose words often reflect the message of the day, such as, "Because he lives, I can face tomorrow." And what about "There is a Redeemer," whose chorus says, "Thank you, O my Father, for giving us your Son and leaving your Spirit here on earth until your work is done." So poignant. In this worrying time when COVID virus is ravaging our land, trust in the Lord, for he is good. I ask you to continue to pray for all the NHS and the other frontline workers at this difficult time. I have 4 close members of my family who are right in the hub of the action, and I pray the Lord every day to keep them and all the other staff safe. We need to be patient and pray that a new vaccine will be created to counteract this virus from our land soon, and then we all can be back together. I don't think any of us are going to forget 2020. Before I finish, I would like to thank the pastors, elders, leaders and everyone at Tŷ Gwyn Community Church for your love, kindness and fellowship to me over the past 5 years, and pray that the friendship will continue for many more years to come. I'm thankful to the Lord for guiding my friends and I to T Gwyn Community Church. Just a note, if you're struggling at this moment, ask the Lord for help. Psalm 121 always does it for me, which I'll read for you now. I will lift my eyes up to the hills. Whence does help come from? My help comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth. He will not let your foot slip. He will watches you over you, will not slumber. Indeed, he who watches over Israel will neither slumber nor sleep. The Lord watches over you. The Lord is your shade at your right hand. The sun will not harm you by day, nor the moon by night. The Lord will keep you from all harm. He will watch over your life. The Lord will watch over your coming and going, both now and forever. I've never looked back since becoming a born-again Christian. I always, an old minister saying, think of joy, Jesus, others, and then yourself. Thank you for listening to my testimony. Till we meet again, keep safe. God bless.
Hi everyone, it's great to be with you. I want to prick our memories. Remember going outside? Like, remember those days? Remember going to a wedding? Think about that for a moment with me, will you? So close your eyes, think about going to a wedding. Think about the moment where, you know, the bride and the dancing and the drinking, and it's all brilliant and fun, and the sun is there if you're in a wedding other than in Wales. Remember those days? In John chapter 2, Jesus is there in a wedding with friends and family in Cana in Galilee, and disaster strikes, John tells us, because they've run out of wine. Now, I've been to some weddings where you have to get your own drinks, and that's okay, but this wedding, they'd run out completely. Weddings in the first century Middle East were extravagant affairs. They often lasted several days, so you had a really good old need sip. So no wine was a big deal. John tells us that Mary, Jesus' mother, was there, tells Jesus the problem with more than a hint of expectation that Jesus will know how to fix it. And he does. John tells us that Jesus then tells the servants to fill 6 massive jars, the size of bathtubs, full of water. That would take some time to do, of course, but they had time on their hands, so they filled the jars. And then they were told to take some of the water and present it to the master of the banquet, the sort of compere, the one who dings the bell and shouts, "Ladies and gentlemen," and all the rest of it. The master takes the water and drinks, in his words, the best wine. The master of the ceremonies then praises the wedding party, because usually you bring out the best wine in the beginning of the, few days long affair, and the cheap plonk at the end, once everyone's had enough. But here in this wedding, he praises them because they've brought the best wine out at last. Everyone's delighted, and as far as we all know, they all live happily ever after, the end. Why have I just told you about John chapter 2? Bigger question. Why on earth is that story in the Bible? Bigger question. Why was Jesus' first miracle turning water into wine to avert disaster at some backwater wedding? Like, surely to goodness, there's bigger things for the Son of God to do, a bigger hit list of miracles. Raise the dead, stopping a global pandemic would be great, healing a sickness. So, like, if you've got it, flaunt it, is it? I was asked that question once by a friend whilst we were both at university. I was walking down the library corridor with some books about, 17th century Spanish history, and saw him at his desk. He studied maths. I didn't have a clue what on earth he was ever on about. But I said hello, And on his desk, amongst all his paperwork, was a copy of John's Gospel that I'd given him a few days before. I asked if he was reading it. He said yes. And then he said, Craig, I've got a question, really. I said, great, go on then. He said, why was Jesus' first miracle turning water into wine? I was on the spot. I thought exactly as I just said. Surely there's bigger things for him to be doing. Surely there was a bigger stuff there were bigger priorities. Why? If Jesus was who he says he was, then he's a big deal. There've been some great people in history, but if Jesus was who he says he was and did what he said he would do, then he is a big deal and stands out and above all the human greats. Because Jesus said he was God. In fact, John's opening words in his gospel was, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. John is talking about God's communicable attributes, how he communicates. His Word. John is talking about Jesus. In the beginning was Jesus. And Jesus was with God because Jesus was God. They're pretty big claims, really. That if Jesus died so that the rubbish in my life and your life, the separateness that exists between us all and God, caused by what the Bible calls sin, is forgiven and removed, then that is a big deal. If Jesus rose from the dead, actually, physically, not spiritually, but actually rose from the dead, so that others in different contexts and settings and crowds heard and saw him, and many of whom themselves went on to their own deaths, claiming to have heard and seen him. If Jesus did all that, then he is a big deal. It would mean that he knows you. He knows where you live. He knows where your name is. He knows where your dreams and ambitions and fears and failures are. He knows you. He is God. And if God came to earth in order to live and die, to deal with the issue of separateness and fear and loneliness, and answer the big sort of what happens when I die questions, if God did that, then I would say his love must be relentless. In fact, he would stop at nothing to get my attention because he is crazy about me. If Jesus is who he says he is and has done what he says he's done, then my friends, he's after you. Why? Why was his first miracle turning water into wine? That's what my friend asked. And in that moment, I breathed a prayer-filled breath and answered, because Jesus makes everything better. Think about that wedding. Something was broken. Jesus fixed it. People were embarrassed. Jesus removed their shame. They should have ordered more and so felt guilt, but Jesus takes guilt away. Everything's better with Jesus. There was confusion. Jesus brings peace. There was fear of failure. Jesus brought hope and relief. There was the normality of a wedding that we've all been to and all enjoyed, but Jesus brings miraculous provision that sustains and thrives, not just weddings or marriages, although he does, but lives themselves. I bet no one's been to a wedding like that one. Jesus takes the water of our existence, and that water for some of us may be filled with anxiety and fear and confusion and anger. Might be filled with grief right now, and loneliness and stress and heartache. Might be filled with memories of what was and confusion and doubt about what may or may not be. Jesus takes that water and just because he can, turns it into something better. Jesus turns water into wine. He takes my existence and makes it better. John ends this little account with these lines. Jesus revealed his glory, and his disciples put their faith in him. Jesus does something, reveals and people believe. And that's the order. Jesus has done something. People believe. My friends, Jesus has done something. He went to a cross to win forgiveness for the sin that will destroy you, which will lead to your death forever. It'll give you exactly what you want, separateness from God. He takes that, has died in your place, in order for you to be free, to live, to enjoy through knowing God. Jesus has done something. Will you believe? It is so easy to start a friendship with God because Jesus has done all the heavy lifting. He's done all the hard work. And now he invites you to start friendship with God, where the more you know and trust him, the more heavy lifting Jesus does by miraculously transforming you from the inside out, turning the water, and some of it, if it's anything like me, pretty dirty, smelly water, and changes it into wine. Changing, transforming us. He did it. He does it. He is phenomenal at it. And that journey starts simply. Sorry, thank you, please. Sorry for all the shame, the sin, the guilt, the fear, for ignoring you. I'm sorry for the bad junk in my life. I'm sorry to others, but I'm ultimately sorry to you, God. Sorry. Thank you. Thank you that you've come looking for me. Thank you that you can forgive me. Thank you for Jesus. Please. Please forgive me. Please transform me. Please help me trust and follow you. If you've prayed that prayer sincerely, then you have to tell someone. Contact T. Gwyn. Let them know. Because if you've prayed that sincerely, then today you've started a friendship with Jesus. You get to know him and watch what he'll do. I bet he'll turn water into wine. And if you've already prayed that prayer, and if you already know Jesus, then keep trusting him today. Keep going to him today, so that he can take the ordinary water of our existence, and by his brilliance, just because he can, take the water and transform it into wine. Great to be with you. Thanks so much.